All right, guys, so when you're looking at a project print, you're going to have different features that are important as far as location. So we can see on this print that there's a bunch of different holes that we're going to have to drill. And we don't want to just eyeball or guess where these holes are going to be. They give us location. So if I wanted to, drill this hole right here, I could follow it over and I could see that it's 1.5 inches from the bottom edge in Y, and it's also 0.19 inches from the left edge. So my origin here would be this bottom left corner because all of my coordinates come from the left and from the bottom. So in order to be able to do this accurately, I need to tell the machine where this origin is as well, so that I can use the digital readout and actually go to these specified coordinates to be able to drill holes in the accurate positions. In order to do that, we're going to use a tool called an edge finder. The edge finder at first glance just looked like a smooth shaft, but if you notice, it's actually two pieces, so it separates down here towards the bottom. This piece right here wobbles around and it's connected by a spring to the actual shaft. So this is going to be installed into a drill chuck. So the drill chuck's already in this machine, so you'd basically just install it in there. Use your chuck key to tighten it up. Okay, now as far as how fast you want to spin this, since there's a spring in there, if you go too fast, it'll actually whip this head right off. The idea for this is you want to go fast enough, but not to where the point's going to damage the edge finder. That's about 1,000 RPM, so I turn it on, and I'm going to increase it to about 1,000. Okay, 1,001 is perfectly fine. Now, if you look at the actual edge finder, right now it looks like it's one smooth piece, but if you push it off center, and this is the only time it's okay to touch a spinning tool, if you push it off center, you'll notice the end starts to wobble, and we're going to use that wobble to our advantage. So I'm going to go ahead and install my part in the vise. The other thing I want you to notice that I have installed is a vise stop. And so when I find my origin and I take my part out, I can always just bump it right back up against the stop. Without this stop, you'll notice in a minute that if I were to take the part out, I would lose all the work I just did. So I'm going to go ahead, bump it up against the stop, and tighten it down. Now, based off of my print, I know that the left and the bottom are the sides that I want to find so that I can tell the machine that the origin is this bottom left corner. So I'm basically going to find the edge with this tool and then program it into my digital readout so that I am able to use the locations on the digital readout. So now I have the part installed, it's up against the stop, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. So really what you're doing is the same operation twice, one for the x-axis and one for the y-axis. So the x-axis is left and right, so all I need to do right now is get the tool over to the left side. Now if my origin was for some reason on the top left, I'd be finding those two sides. If my origin for some reason was on the right, I'd be over here. You have to find the two edges that all of your coordinates come from. So now I bring it down, and really what I want to do is I want to bring it down far enough so that just the head of this is going to engage the side. If I bring it down too far, then the whole shank of this tool will touch and it won't actually be able to do the job. So you only want to have it down so that only the head of this will engage the side of the tool, or the side of the part. So at this point, what I do is I start to bring the part closer, and that wobbling tool you'll start to hear, and it's difficult in the video, but when you're doing this, you'll start to hear it hit, and then you'll start to see the wobble smooth out. So now it's not wobbling anymore, it's getting smoother and smoother. What I'm looking for is for it to actually jump off center. So I'm going to go a little bit more, just a tiny bit at a time. Now you may think it's going to push it this way, but it's actually going to be opposite of what you're thinking. It's actually going to push the edge finder one way forward or back when I'm hitting on this side. So I keep going, keep going, keep going, and right there you can see that it offset. At that point, I know that the side of my tool is exactly at the side of my part. And what I want to do is I want to zero out my x-axis. So I hit 0. Now the problem with that is all of these locations on the print are based on the center of the tool. And right now we just touched the edge of the tool. So if this was my edge finder, I bumped it off the side, but I really need to locate the center of the tool over that edge. In order to do that, you have to move the part over now half of the diameter of this tool, or the radius of the tool. Now it's a very common size that our edge finders are a 1/2 inch or 500 thousandths. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to move my x-axis. Right now it's 0, but if you look from the front of the part, you'll see that that's the side of my tool at the side of the part. Really what I want is the center of my tool going directly over the edge of my part. And I do that by going over the radius of the tool. So I'm going to go ahead and go to 250 on the digital readout, 0.250. So if you take a look right there, I'm at 0.250. And the center of my tool is over the edge of the part. Now the last step for this is to re-zero this out. And so basically now at 0 for X, I have the edge of my part going directly up the center of the tool, and that's the visual I want. Now I just have to repeat those steps for Y. So if I just go ahead and bring it over to the bottom edge now, bring the tool back down, same thing, engage the head, and now I'm going to do it on the bottom edge or the Y axis. So I bring it, it starts to hit. Okay, it smooths out, and then it's going to jump this way. So I'm going a little bit more, and there it just jumped off. You can kind of hear it. The offset's right there. So now I can zero out my Y-axis. I can raise the tool up, and then move it over the radius again. So I'm basically going to bring the part back this way so that the edge is going straight up the center of the tool. The same number, 0.250. And then I re-zero it out. Now the final check for this, to make sure you did this right, is to go to X and Y 0. And basically what you're looking for is if I bring this close, I can see that the very corner of my tool would be going directly up the center, or the very corner of my part would be going directly up the center of the tool. It wouldn't be offset to one side or the other. If I look from both axes, I can see that the center line of the part is going right up the center of the tool, and that's what I want. That way, when I actually go to one of these locations, let's say I want to drill this hole, which is 0.19 over in X and 0.5 up in Y, I just go directly to that coordinate on my digital readout. Okay, so 0.5 in Y, 0.19 in X. And now I would see my tool is directly over. Now this isn't my drill bit, but if I had my drill bit in there, my tool is directly over the location of that hole. I could drill the hole, do whatever I need to at that location, and then proceed on to the next location for the next hole. And the last thing you really want to think about, like I mentioned, is now with this stop in place, if I take the part out to measure or something, I come back the next day, as long as this is still in the same place, I can just bump this back up against the stop and everything's still in the same location. One word of caution is, if you've left a machine, assume that somebody screwed it up for you and double check the origin by going to 0, 0 and making sure, again, that the center of your tool is right over the corner of your part or the origin of your part. So I would just go to 0, 0. The next day and just verify that the origin is still there. And that's it for edge finding.